Or even I have 5 minutes. Maybe. Technical difficulties. I get extra time, right, and I get to cut the line. So you might have heard Read the Docs mentioned a couple times. You might notice that it's also kind of the inverse of the name of the conference. I run a site called Read the Docs. This was a talk I gave at DjangoCon 2001. In 45 minutes, I will now give in 5. What is this talk? It's about Read the Docs. I come from Django. Why I'm here? Well, yeah, whatever. So the story, in 2010, there's a Django Dash competition put on Daniel Lindsley over here. It's a 48-hour coding competition. Me, my friend Charles, and Bobby created a site. We solved a problem. Doc hosting in the Python world really sucked. People would use this packages.python.org where you just uploaded a tarball or zip file. Pull down your code into your docs. Come on now, we're like, since we text source and all that stuff. It looks like it's pretty mighty and what? We don't say word, it was really simple. So says, because I do also the split of the features. We support all the major version control systems. The really kind of magical thing is post-commit hooks. So you check your Sphinx code into a repo. We pull that down and build your docs. So when you commit it, it pings our service. We pull down your code, and it magically stays up to date. That's the cool part, is you have something in a repo that is always live and up to date on for your users. We have a custom theme that was complemented by the typography dude. We have full text search. Boom. Tags and branches. Where's James Tauber? Boom. PDF generation. Somebody, where's the PDF talk? What? Like, virtual items you don't care. We have a short name that might be familiar if you know to RTFM. That was taken. We own rtfd.org, though, which makes me smile and happy inside. Tech. We do support subdomains as well as CNAMEs, so you can host it on your own domain or x.rtfd.org, which will redirect to readthedocs.org. So Jeff isn't here. He's one of my friends who writes Fabric. So, for example, you point docs.fabfile.org at fabric.readthedocs.org, and magically you get custom doc hosting. It has really fancy architecture, so it doesn't go down. Acronyms and words. Open source outcomes. We get patches. Yay, open source. That's good and bad. I'll get to that. Slow lords is a really fun attack where you basically send HTTP requests to a server and just never close them. And then you send like 20 of them and all of your server processes are sitting there. It's like, yeah, we're going to send this request in a minute. And then nobody can your server processes are taking up. That's fun when you have to use open source. That leads to somebody else talked about that, about building things in open source and how you have to think about that. That was the ultimate excuse is, I don't know where to put my docs when I write them. Where do they go? Where do I find them? We solved that problem for the Python world and more other people too, hopefully. Lessons, think really hard about URLs. You people love your conciseness and your beautiful words. We love our conciseness and beautiful URLs. Lay your project out sanely, much like a book. Write tests and books. We're basically just wrapping Sphinx to do this and building a web service around it, which is great because like all the hard work's done and we just get to make the pretty. And passing data through systems is hard, as I'm sure you guys realize. We're kind of wrapping this tool that wasn't actually meant to do this, and so we're having to hack it all sorts of crazy. Oh, God, 30 seconds. Static files are annoying. Log everything. Do a promotion. Programmers are really bad at this. Find a designer because they make things pretty and work well. Follow the Unix philosophy in that we do one thing and one thing well. Have a mission. Thanks, sponsors of that. Questions? 12 seconds. I almost had a demo. Cool. Thank you.
That was ridiculously fast. Thank you, Eric. All right. Christina Elmore, you are up next. This is... Hi. All right, let me close this. I'll get yours open. Here, you can hold the mic, though.
I'm Christina Elmore. I live and work here in Portland. And I do two things here. I manage projects, and I edit fiction. And I'm going to get this set up for you. Back it up a little. A little back up there. There we go. I'm going to talk about the process of documenting a novel, which is something that I haven't really heard talked about, but there's actually a lot of overlap between what I do when I manage projects where we build applications. And at the end, if I have time, I'm going to talk about why I think that these windows are some of the best forms of documentation out there right now. The windows, though, are actually a metaphor for me for the way that I think, and that's why I've got them up here. They're really elegant designs, but also I love being able to do things where I have windows into a system or a process, a story, or a world. And so what's really great about that is that my two jobs really give me an opportunity to see how applications are built and then to also see how stories are built and to influence those. So it gives me a window and a constant refreshing of a new window to look into. And interestingly, there's an overlap between those things right now, which is ebooks, and that's kind of where my future is going, is in the building of an ebook that is also the building of a story. So back to the windows. As I said, this is the metaphor that I have for the work that I like to do. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit, give you a window into the documentation involved in creating a novel. And I know that for some people, when you get a window into a process, it actually takes all the sexiness out of it, but it is the complete opposite for me. This is where the romance really begins for me. So if this is going to kill it for you, avert your eyes, because I'm about to expose what happens when you do a novel. So I want to show this because a novel often starts with an outline. And one of the tools that I've recently started to convince authors to use are mind maps, which are much useful beyond just the brainstorming tool. So what you see on the left is a mind map, and all those topics can be expanded and then simple drag and drop to reorder a narrative arc. And so especially in literary fiction these days, you've got people telling stories where they've got different characters unraveling the narrative. And what this allows us to do, particularly for me to collaborate with an author, is to treat the timeline and the outline as something nimble, which is also something we end up having to do in the application world as well. It also means it's a tool we actually come back to once the writing has started to happen. We can come back and adjust and play with the narrative outline without having to actually do the writing to see what the implications are. So then the other thing we do is we do research, and these are just two tools that we commonly use. I think many of you are probably familiar with particularly Evernote as a form of personal documentation, but I really enjoy working with fiction authors who have to do research. So for me, using Scrivener, which is a tool that gives you some powerful word processing functionality mixed with research, web clipping, and the ability to combine those things, I really appreciate working with authors who are doing research. And that means we have to have some way to have a shared location to clip things off the web and note where they're relevant in the story. So the next thing, what you saw just flash by the screen is like just a trivial point in the process where the author writes the book. But now we get to the editing, which is the most important part. So again, I'm going to show you a mind map. I don't know if you can read this, but this is a tool I use to go through and say, okay, you've written a book about this character. It never takes place in the character's childhood, but you've referenced in a million different places the character's childhood, and now I'm going to make sure that you haven't effed that up. I'm going to make sure everything is in sequence and you haven't made them, like being born somewhere and then also having a child when they're 16 in North Carolina when they're supposed to be in Philadelphia. So I use that for this. And this is like present Christina helping out future Christina to make sure that when the author goes back in and changes one of those details, I don't know that there was structural integrity from a narrative standpoint once, and now I have to go back and recreate that. I go back and I reference this and I say, if you change that, that means she has to be born in 1981 as opposed to 1978. The other thing that I do is I develop style guides. I worked with an author recently who it was set on a fictional post-colonial island in the South, somewhere Southeast Asia. And so he had his characters speaking in British English. So I was mining all of the British style guides I could find. And I would strongly recommend the gov.uk government documentation. But I really like one of the things they say at the end, which is that all audiences should understand our content. This isn't about dumbing down. This is about opening up government information to all, which I think applies to what many of us are doing. So that's just a little plug there. The last thing that I do is I create documentation that overlays onto the actual publication of the print book. And one of the things I like about this is that it just shows that there's a lot of value in actually adding the documentation just on top of the visual thing. There is no way this would be valuable to me if I was just writing out, well, heading 1 is this and heading 2. I mean, it would be valuable because it would be written down, but it wouldn't be as valuable as I need it to be. So the last thing that I want to talk about is just one thing about documentation, about being able to get documentation early on. This is a plea, and I know I'm almost done, but I just want to show this. This is a plea to do whatever drive-through documentation you can at a time. This is a map that an author drew because he needed to be able to say, I'm having these characters walk through an island, and I need to be able to understand, are they going north or south? And then that turned into this. and then that turned into this, and this is being included in a printed novel and on a website to give readers an opportunity to engage with the book. So your drive-through documentation that you create just as a byproduct to help you accomplish something can turn into something beautiful in the end, which is something I believe all of you believe in. I don't think I have time to talk about the windows, but I encourage you to check out this website. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is Mo. Hold on. I think I've got a... Ready? Come on.
Hi, my name's Mo Nishiyama. I work at a local university/healthcare institution, and 95% of my job right now involves dealing with customer and colleague emails. And it's like in this culture, we got a lot of stuff and a lot of work to do. Everyone is overwhelmed. Everybody just wants to just kind of take the easiest way out when it comes to emails. A lot of times people write the simplistic and half-assed emails asking for something, or when you get incoming requests, they just hit the forward button or reply button without really thinking about it. And they think it's to save time, but you know what? It doesn't really save time. Here are 4 tips that I discovered within the last year that actually help save time. So I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, next slide. So here are examples of subject lines. One thing, make your subject lines meaningful. I know we talk about conciseness, but when you actually make the subject line more meaningful, it actually saves time for you, for your customer, for your colleagues in the long run. The bottom examples, like if I get an email like that says project status, like, well, I got zillions of projects going on. What the hell? I'm going to say, do I look like a mind reader, sir? I don't know. But if you get the top one, for example, status for Eric's brewpub documentation, then, oh yeah, that one, the one that was due last week, I'll get on it. So, all right, so second thing, important stuff comes first. If you're going to write a document, please do not put the 4 scores and 7 years ago and all that crap at the top, and then in the red circle it says, hey, can you give me a status for documentation? No. People do not like that. Mobile people do not like that shit either. It's like, so do not put the 4 scores and 7 years at the top. Important stuff comes first. Put the important stuff first. Then you can go on with your 4 scores and 7 years. Then you can go on with the hipster Portland Ipsum Lorem. Okay. Third thing. Okay. Third thing. If you are caught in a situation where you are responding to customers' email, but it's somebody else's problem, you can do that. You could do this easy way out and just forward it to your colleague and say, let them deal with it. But customer doesn't know that. And then they bother you with, hey, what's going on? I try to email your colleague, he hasn't responded. It's like, shit. Or you can just go ahead and reply to, or forward it to your colleague and say, hey, take care of this. But you know what? People don't like being talked to. They don't like to be given instructions. So I found out the best way to avoid those fumbles or missed communication is to reply to the customer and copy your colleague. And my favorite thing to do is, hey, Patty, this work order is assigned to my colleague, Lori. She has the best idea about where this project is or when she can get back to you. So nicely just get the word, put the onus on your colleague. Basically what you're telling him is, I've got 99 problems, but your project isn't one. So last thing is, this is what I've been doing a lot, and I'll explain the picture in a bit here. Text entry macros are time savers. People use form mails. I actually use Quick Keys or Macro Express. I have lots of macros that I use on various occasions throughout the course of a day. My favorite one is the nice, flowery email with customers. Dear so-and-so, blah, 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 blah. Your work order number is 12345, and this will be assigned to a technician in a day or two. And have a great, beautiful day. So just nice thing, yeah. It's better than, it saves me more time than typing, hi, Patty, this is your work order, blah, 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 blah. But one thing if you're going to use, if you're using macros, a couple things to remember. One, always change the default text of the form letter. If it's for customers, please change the default settings from good morning/afternoon, name of esteemed customer, to Dear Patty. And also, if you're using macros for certain things like computers, when you want to say, "Dear Patty, the computer for Dr. Hill is ready to be delivered," make sure that you change the body of the text for the right occasion, because my personal example with Dr. Dre here is I always use the most redonkulous example, so I know to change the damn text before I send it out. I always proofread, because I recently sent a customer email saying, "Dear customer, your Apple MacBook Pro for Dr. Dre is ready to be delivered." And the customer wrote back saying, "Who the hell's Dr. Dre?" Okay, thank you very much. Those 4 things.
That was awesome. Thanks, man. That was wonderful. All right, I think Patrick's next. Sure, why not? All right. You're the name I called, so that you get to be next. All right, here we go. There are... Does that work? That's good enough. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Patrick Arlt. I'm a designer and developer at the Esri R&D Center here in Portland, and we actually need to be able to... I don't know if I can... Just click. Oh, there we go. So, and I actually wanted to talk real fast about designing great documentation. And recently what we did is we launched a new website, and I just went past it, but it's a new website. We launched developers.arcgis.com, and we took all of the documentation out of a larger website that had all the help documents for all the products in a company that's 40 years old that sells to just about everyone imaginable. And this is kind of what it looked like for Windows Phone. And you don't actually know anything. There's no hierarchy established on the page. We identified a lot of problems with the typography and the readability of everything, but also in the hierarchy and the structure of the documentation that was making it difficult for people to get work done. And when we started to do the new site, we wanted to redesign it. We wanted to give developers better documentation. We wanted to solve the problems that were making the documentation hard to read. There was the hierarchies were too complex. It was hard to navigate, hard to find what you wanted to get to. So we laid down some ground rules, and these are pretty basic. Browsers have a default font size. It's actually 16 pixels. It looks enormous, absolutely enormous when you look at it. But then take this test. Hand your laptop to the person next to you and ask them to read the first line of text on the page. And if they go like this, your font size, it's way too small. I would watch Amber Case at Geolocating at the R&D Center, and every time she visits a web page, she immediately zooms in about 5 levels, and the text just becomes huge. And she does it for every single web page except for the ones I design, because I deliberately make the font sizes bigger. It's easier to read. People like it more. You're going to annoy them a lot less. Start looking at things like line length. If you've ever read a line of text and you get to the end of it and then you kind of lose your place on the page, the line length is too long. 50 to 80 characters, including all your spaces and tabs and everything. It gives people's eyes so there's space too far apart. You're going to run this once, 3 line down, looking much. So you go and then it allows people to illustrate and then start that section. So create headers and create those document hierarchies and break out the block text. And we also looked at navigation. We looked at where are the action items going to go on this page? How do I download this library? Where's the link to the Getting Started tutorial? The things that people really want to get to quickly. And a great test for this is if you actually look at a page that you've got, squint at it. Just close your eyes and squint at it and see if you can still see your main action item on the page. So if you looked at some of our pages, we have a big orange button that's usually something like download sample code or download the library. You can see it visibly on a lot of the documentation pages. It gives people a good cue and a good place to start looking. And it also means that you can see your document hierarchy without seeing your actual text. You can see that there's a header here, and there's a paragraph there, and then there's a list, and then there's another header, and it's broken up for you, and it looks cleaner, and it looks easier to read. So, and another thing is we looked at all the labels for everything. There was a lot of very generic labeling, things that were just labeled editing, and it wasn't telling you what it's editing. Are you editing things on the map? Are you editing your data? So we really wanted to get the teams to enforce strict labeling, and that getting things named properly and named explicitly mattered. So This is an example of what it looked like before. There's lots of hierarchy broken down, and you can see that there's stuff nested under getting started, and then it's nested again, and then it's nested, and then there's a table, and it's nested again under that. And then if you go into sidebar, there's some nesting, and then it's nested again, and there's 3 levels of nesting. It goes into 4 in some places. So it's difficult. And then this is what we ended up with. I did that deliberately. But it's nice and big. You can clearly see where each section of the document is. There's a very short table of contents on the side, so you can quickly jump into any of the sections. There's the bright download link. I think I'm out of time.
Thank you. All right, we've got David Hooker is next. Allow. Is that it? All right.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, my name is David Hooker, and I write forward-facing communication for users at Prezi.com, and I also, for want of a better word, coach our support staff in writing for users. Before I worked for Prezi, I spent 9 years working in South Korea for Samsung. No, not the electronics version, the construction version. To cut a long story short, I used to write, edit, and proofread safety manuals for people installing toilets. I didn't find this particularly fulfilling, so I took a massive pay cut, moved to Budapest, and started working for an innovative tech company. This has presented me with a whole bunch of new challenges, so perhaps someone comes from a slightly similar point of view might appreciate some of the lessons that I've learned. I want to introduce you to Andras. Andras is a developer. He's also Hungarian. I don't know which one of these two things makes him rude. But after I gave a very similar talk to internally within the company, this is what Andras had to say to me when he came up to me at the end. I particularly like his use of the word reasonably. This is what Andras... This is what Andras listened to. So the big difference between writing articles, this is Jim Carrey saying it's alive. It was popular when I was 12. The big difference is, that's a bug. The big difference is when you write a safety manual for a toilet, it gets read by 2 or 3 people and then it gets thrown away and never read again. When you write for a tech company, you have thousands of people reading your documents, and then the logic behind your documents changes every day. So we have to have a process, which is something we didn't have. And the idea is for it to be easy. So the person who spoke before about having a What's New section, we also have a What's New section, which is really useful. And then we install guidelines. I only have 3 minutes. So this is all of the things that we decided to include in the guidelines. Also, I found out that people in tech companies like to track data, which is not something I've had to put up with before. So these are our search strings on the left, and then these are our click-through rates here. These are nice and tiny, so you can't see how bad they are. And then we found that some people are all searching for the same thing, but they phrase it in different ways. So we had some people looking for delete Prezi, some people looking for delete Prezi, and some people looking for how do I delete a Prezi, which is annoying. 70% of these people were finding their answers, 60% of these people were finding their answers, but people who just wrote delete Prezi, only 30% of them were clicking through. Uh-oh, this is a problem. So to fix problems like this, I have words, and I use words in 3 ways: tags, content, and comments. For the content, these were the 3 strings. I wrote an article. This one's in there, bingo. That one's in there, bingo. This one's more difficult to put in. What am I going to put in? You can delete a Prezi by. Wrong string. To delete Prezi, what? I'm going to delete the entire thing? No, I don't think so. If you want delete Prezi, a nice grammar, I can't even read it out on stage. For information on how to delete Prezi desktop, we have this, I'm clever. And we have tags. This is something that Zendesk puts in that allows you to put one-word tags onto articles to help people look for things. This article's about cancelling a subscription, which is not something I should highlight. One great thing we did was we have comments. We allowed users to leave comments on articles to tell them if they were good or not. These comments don't get put on the website, but the email gets sent to me and I can check them. The great thing about this is we opened up our articles to our users, and you get some really, you'll see the kind of comments we get. This is, I don't know exactly what they meant by that. I like it when they get kind of semi-threatening. This is not possible, by the way. Some of them get a little bit dumb. Yeah, that's the level that we put up with sometimes. Some of them get philosophical. This is far too long, but it's very deep. Then we get into the useful stuff. Some of it is useful, and then I use the useful stuff to improve the articles. But hey, it's about 10% of what they write in with. The best one ever, I have to share this, the best one ever, someone with the username I'm Batman wrote, I'm Batman. Okay, I don't really have time for this part, but you know, some people in startups and you're trying to cross that chasm, you've all seen that graph before. Don't say hey, it doesn't translate well. Hi there, hi where, hi over here, over there. Don't use that either. Best what? So these things are good. Macros are good. Links, separate them from your text. Instructions should be broken into lines. Never make assumptions. And never make references to internal company things. For example, I'm assigning you to level 2 support. The user just thinks level 2. What's level 2? What level was I on? Was I on level 1? Have I advanced to level 2? Was I on level 1, the top premium level, and now I've been put back to level 2? Put me on level 1. Was I on level 3? The other conflict we have is along with the conflict that we have with the developers is the conflict we have with the designers. This is our lead designer. He's David. He's from France. And David says things like, a cat is a cat. Which basically means that, and we are post-digital, which basically means you don't use these signs along here at the bottom because people don't understand what they mean, and you don't use abbreviations because ESP in Hungary means especially, but where I come from it means extrasensory perception, and people get confused. Thank you very much.
Something tells me that was part of a larger talk. All right. Actually, Mary, we are ready. Let me switch out my laptop here. You want to hold this?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Anthony. I write the docs for Atlassian, not all of them. I write, Atlassian makes Jira, Atlassian makes Confluence, and Atlassian makes Bitbucket. I work in the San Francisco office, and that's where we do the documentation for the developers. Funnel cake. This is not about lunch. This is a picture of a Google Analytics funnel. And I started attaching these to our Getting Started. Everybody knows from Daniel's talk yesterday, Getting Started are often the first stop for your users. And sometimes they can be complex. For example, Bitbucket, you have to have Git installed locally. If you're on Windows, it gets even more complicated. So they can be complex and they can require N+ pages. If you're at a big company like Atlassian, product marketing cares about all this stuff. They look at my Getting Started and they go, that's too long. The first time I went to the Bitbucket team, they had a 3-page tutorial, which nobody liked. And I modified it to 9 pages, and the first thing the product marketing guy said was, that's too long. And so first I handed it to my 16-year-old nephew, who finished it in an hour, and he's not a programmer. So I think it was pretty good, and I put it up, and then I attached a Google Analytics conversion funnel to it. And that's something marketing people used to track steps through pages to goals. So, for example, how many pages did somebody go through before they signed up for our service? Okay? And so when I started attaching funnel conversion rates and building them, I started getting comments like this from my developers, which were, I'm amazed. 1,000+ people entered the funnel, and I'm blown away with how many people completed it. Awesome stuff. This is from an engineer who was talking about a piece. Let me see if I could get a piece that I wrote. Okay, it's boring looking, yes. But this is what he was talking about. Let me see if I can see my cursor. This is a conversion rate for that funnel. This funnel's been running for about a month and a half. You can see that the funnel conversion rate's about 18%. Most funnel conversion rates on marketing pieces run between 5% throughput rate and about 20%. Anything around 5 or 10 is considered excellent in the marketing world. I couldn't find many writers that were doing this kind of thing. You can see this is a funnel I'm writing on our SDK tutorial. Looks a lot like our OWI tutorial. A lot of pages. This has been running almost a year. 33,000 people have entered the top of the tutorial. They can enter at any page. And I've got a 19% throughput rate on this tutorial also. Now I'm going to show you one that bombed. Okay, it's about writing tests in our SDK. I wonder why this one bombed. You can see we got a short burst when we released a new test suite, and then pretty much nobody looks at this. So what you can do with a funnel conversion is you can look at it and go, crap, it's failing, like I did, and I'll probably rewrite this tutorial to just reference pages since nobody seems to be using it as a tutorial. So this is the oldest living tutorial that I have out there. This is my tutorial for Bitbucket. Since its inception, almost a year ago, 300,000 people have started through the funnel. Let's see if I can scroll with this. And you can see down at the bottom, over 121K people have actually worked through the tutorial. And the cool thing about this is now I show it to my marketing guy every time he tells me that my tutorial is too long. I get pretty much everybody spending between 2 and 4 minutes per page. The tutorial actually has multiple threads through it. So I'm up here sort of promoting this. If you work for a company that does data analytics on your docs, this is really useful. And every time I tell the guys how many people have actually worked through the tutorial, they're always amazed that people are using the documentation. Thanks.
All right, that was our last lightning talk. I think we're